This is episode 2 of the Travel Nursing Roundtable. Today we're going to go over negotiating skills, contracts, and I think the funnest thing is that we're going to go over today is how to survive your first assignment. I just wanted to frame that out right now, and then we'll jump right in, and I'll have Kelly start the introduction, and then we can go right into talking about everything.
Okay, great. Well, hi, I'm Kelly, Real Nurse Kelly. I'm brand ambassador here at United Staffing Solutions. Love it. And I've been a nurse for 2 years, and my experience is in the ED and ICU. And I'm looking to travel and learning a lot about the industry, and I love it.
Okay, well, my name is David Dean. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Client Services here at USSI, a nationwide Joint Commission travel nursing company. And we also have Angelina Gibson, who is what we call the travel nursing insider, who has built quite an online presence. Angelina, we'll pass it over to you, and you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Angelina, and I'm the creator of the Travel Nursing Insider YouTube channel, Instagram, and I also have a new blog, travelscrubshub.com. And I was a recruiter for over 5 years. I worked for 4 different agencies during that time. So I would always have new nurses come to me, and they'd be really confused, pretty overwhelmed with all of the information, and a lot of it was misinformation. So once I got out of the industry after 2 agencies were sold, I thought, well, let me just share this information with them, what I know, to help kind of clarify some things and help them with any mistakes that I've heard from other traveling nurses before them.
Nice. Well, welcome, and we look forward to talking about all things travel nursing. And then last but not least, we'll transfer over to Kay, who is the curator of Highway to Hypodermic's website and an absolute celebrity in the travel nursing industry.
No, I'm just a traveler Monday through Fridays. Hey, thanks for the invite. Yeah, I've been a nurse since 1992, so however long, it's been a long time, 25 years. And I've been a traveler since 2003, which is 14 years.
So I want to get started. The 3 things we're going to go over, I want to get started on the first one, the one that's really fun for me, negotiating skills. And I actually want to go right into Angelina. Something you talked about, misinformation, really stood out in my mind because contracts and misinformation is definitely a juicy topic in the travel nursing industry because every agency has different contracts. Every hospital has different contracts. And I think, Angelina, maybe you can get us started by talking a little bit about what you experienced from a misinformation standpoint and how you were able to transition that to really clearly communicate to the nurses.
Yeah, so there's a lot of just marketing gimmicks out there, and people would come and they would kind of believe all of these marketing gimmicks like free housing or a lot of kind of free things. So what I really stress to new traveling nurses is that they need to do the research before they even start negotiating. So a lot of the misinformation out there I feel has to do with some of the marketing gimmicks that are used, things that have to do with advertising free housing or tax-free money and things like that. So what I really stress is for new traveling nurses to do the research, to understand the full pay package breakdown so that they know, exactly how it's laid out, because there are different monetary figures that are used to kind of maybe confuse people, or it's just not all really clear that this is your taxable income, this is your non-taxed income. So I try to educate them on that, and then also just lead them in the directions that they need to go to do their own research, especially on taxes and understanding what is an appropriate non-taxed rate and the GSA rates and everything like that.
Good. Well, we'll pass right over to Kay here. Kay, if you could kind of talk to us a little bit about, from a travel nurse's standpoint, how do you, if you're working with 3 different companies, how do you interpret that information to kind of go through and figure out what's right, wrong, and find out exactly what you're going to get paid?
Well, there's a lot of things that come into play. Location. There's some destinations. If you want to go to Hawaii, that's a fun state, but you're not going to get paid. So you have to look at that. You have to look at the locations. You have to also be aware that the southern states, they don't pay as much as some of the northern states, and even the coastal states are a lot higher, in the United States. So you have the pay rate to consider. And then also, I have an Excel program which I put them all in, and then try to figure out, okay, so they're giving me this and this and this, and what's the value? Okay, so what's the value on my insurance? So I'm paying $200 and they're paying $200. So we would add the $200 because that's it's all coming out of the bill rate, which is what the hospital pays the staffing company. So that's the first thing a traveler needs to realize. And then you figure up what you're getting from each travel company, and then what's the bottom line. If there's a $2 or $3 difference per week, per hour, that may or may not affect where you want to go. You'd have to go back to location. But if there's a $10-15 difference, then that's a no-brainer.
Okay.
So that's how I figure out my contracts and choose on which company. Sometimes it's all about the recruiter also. The company may have great benefits, but if you get along with a certain, because you just click, some nurses you click with, some recruiters I click with. So you just see who you click with. That's what I do.
That's a really great point. It sounds like you have a really holistic approach to selecting that recruiter or the hospital, the pay package that works for you.
Okay, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. If you're a brand new traveler and you're looking to get into travel and you're looking at your very first pay package, what are some negotiation tips that you would advise a new traveler, someone who's never done this before, in order to really get what they want out of a pay package when they have to negotiate? Because sometimes numbers aren't flubbed, that's the wrong word, but they can be altered.
Right.
Those negotiation tips.
Right. I look at the GSA.gov site, which is the government's site for per diems, and I look at their differences in their lodging and their meals, MINE, for that certain area. In my Travel Nursing Newbies Facebook group, I've been using that with my newbies, and it has really helped them because it gives you're not just pulling a number out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really helped them to take 75% of that, because that's the rate that the military government uses for extended contracts, which is 30 to 180 days. Well, what do travel nurses do? They do the 30 to 180 days. So the easiest way that you can do all this is to plug in your taxable rate and then put your MINE in there and your housing, and it just depends how far off your numbers are to what the travel agency is giving you. Because if you're at, say, $1,600 a week and the travel agency is quoting you $1,200, well, that's a $400 difference. So maybe let's split it halfway at the 200 mark. So that's what I've come up with lately.
Nice. That's absolutely incredible viewpoint from the travel nursing standpoint. I've never heard someone so knowledgeable on that.
Right.
Let's go over to Angelina and see what tips, hot tips she's providing the nurses that follow her. when you're negotiating and negotiation tips and when you're interacting with agencies and whatnot?
So I think one of the most important things that I tell them is to not disclose the pay that they're wanting or they're looking for. Like, excuse me, when I was a recruiter, one of the first questions I would ask them was for pay, you know, what do you want to make? And that's a way for me to gauge, you know, what kind of contract that they would be happy with. Yep. But, you know, I could have this really great bill rate and create a contract that meets their needs, they'll be happy, but I have extra money that I could be giving them. So what I advise them to say is when they're asked that question, they should say, you know, they're looking for the best pay package that the agency can provide them based on other factors that they're looking for in a contract. So location, schedule, just all of the other things that go into a contract, because negotiating is not all about the pay. You know, there's a lot of other components that you need to know about and get factored in there.
Yeah, Angela, can you speak a little bit to how a contract works and what all is inside of a contract? Like, what are brand new travel nurses going to be figuring out? What is a pay package? What is a contract? What are the details that, for those who don't know, that all go into that? Because for just regular RNs and that are staff nurses at hospitals, that's not something that we have to worry about. So what are the components of a contract?
Yeah, so first, just like looking at the pay package, every agency does their pay package differently. There's nothing across the board. But what it comes down to is your taxable hourly rate and your non-taxed rate if you're eligible for that, based on IRS tax guidelines. And you'll see that non-tax rate broken down in different ways. So they might call it a housing stipend, meals and incidentals, per diems. There's just lots of lingo that they will call it, but and they'll put it in different denominations too. So what I teach people is to break all of those numbers down into an hourly rate by adding all of those non-tax numbers together, the stipends and everything, and dividing it by how many hours they're working per week, and that will give you your hourly rate. And then you can add your non-tax plus your taxable hourly rates together to see what your blended rate is. So yeah, pay packages can just be pretty confusing. And then when it comes to the contract, your end date, your shifts, the hours that you'll be able to work, your cancellation clause that the hospital has, so how many hours they can cancel you per week, if there's guaranteed hours or not. So oftentimes if you're canceled and you're working, you can be penalized on your stipend. Some agencies do that.
Okay.
And if you're penalized on your stipends, then maybe, you know, you can't pay rent, you're not getting your pay. So it's important to talk about and have guaranteed hours in there.
Right.
Into it.
Well, that's awesome. That was great information. Guaranteed hours are definitely another juicy subject in the industry. Kay, why don't you tell us a little bit about guaranteed hours and what you look for and what you educate all of your team online and all your newbies online on what to look for from a guaranteed hours standpoint?
It's important that if you need, you know, if you really need the money and need the guaranteed hours, then yes, make sure it's in your contract. 36 hours is the base. I'm actually into management now, so my guarantee is usually 40 hours a week. Now this assignment is a little bit different in that I have a 32-hour a week guarantee. I work Monday through Thursdays. And so that's my 32 hours. And so I'm guaranteed those 32 hours. What happens is that if you do not have guaranteed hours, then the hospital can cancel you. So that's just a little bit of a guarantee that the hospitals will not cancel you. So for some nurses, you know, that is a must. You know, they have to have it because, you know, they're traveling for a reason. And, you know, a lot of the reasons are, you know, money problems from staff jobs that aren't paying as well. So that's why they started to travel. So for those nurses, then yes, you gotta have the guaranteed hours in. Um, another thing about the guaranteed hours is that if you have those guaranteed hours, then you also have to be willing to make yourself available for that many hours. So for a regular nurse working 36 hours, then if you miss a day, then you have to be available for the rest of the week. You have to give them times of availability so that you can make up those hours.
Okay.
So it's a good thing, if you have to have, if you definitely can't afford to miss work.
Kay, you hit on management before, and I think this is a great transition point to our final topic. Being in management now and being really talented and experienced in travel nursing, if you're bringing in a traveler for your role right now, what are you looking for in that first time traveler, and what do you see different from a first time traveler to someone like yourself that has 30 years of experience?
Well, the biggest thing I've noticed is that your orientation time.
Okay.
For those who have been doing this forever, or it's 3 days of orientation, and we're like, oh my gosh, just let me get to the floor and go with it. We've rode this bicycle before. Just give us one day and go. And then, in fact, at my current position, I came in at 11 o'clock in the morning, and they said, well, the 3 to 11 person isn't gonna be here. She called in. Can you take the reins by yourself tonight? I said, well, yeah. I said, just give me a phone number and I'll roll with it. And so that was my orientation by fire.
Yeah.
If you started a newbie out and brought them in for 4 hours and says, well, you're on your own, kid, that's not safe for the people, that's not safe for the nurses. It's not safe for the patients. You're just setting yourself up for a disaster there. So yes, the newbies do require more orientation. Now, for us old ones, we just take short orientation. The whole thing about this deal is that hospitals need to find out what type of orientation that you require and see if they can supply that. But also, from the nurse's standpoint of view, part of travel nursing is being able to hit the floor running. So, after you get some experience underneath you, a day of orientation is what you should expect, really.
Awesome. That's great. So let's, Angelina, I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I know you educate a lot of new travelers. First, we want to have you talk a little bit about what you do to educate your new travelers, and then maybe we'll have Kelly talk about her first orientation as a staff nurse, which can probably provide us even more insight on the orientation process and how to survive those first uncomfortable days of being in a place where we have no idea what's going on and where we're stressed out and how to go into that with the right mindset.
Okay. Yeah. So first, I just really stress to them that, they will get very little orientation. Facilities are hiring them to fill a need. So unfortunately, sometimes you get a working orientation, you might get a day or two on the unit, things like that. So just having enough experience under your belt to go in there feeling confident. I had the opportunity to witness a brand new traveling nurse. I was her first patient when I delivered my baby. And so I was just like observing her. I was observing her the whole time, and I was just amazed by her. And she
talk about some hands-on experience.
Yeah,
there.
wow.
Yeah. And she was just a great nurse. She just really helped me develop this passion for nurses and traveling nurses, and we're still friends. But yeah, I witnessed her, and what I found with her was that, you know, she had one day of orientation on the unit. She really didn't know her way around the unit, but like when she would call for help, sometimes people wouldn't be there to help her. So, but she knew how to find the answers. So I stress to them that it's important that if you don't know the answer, if there's no one there to help you, you really need to know how to advocate for yourself and how to, you know, find what you're needing so that you can serve your patients. And so I think that ties a lot into having the experience.
That's great. Well, let's transition over to Nurse Kelly, who I think and let's test my memory a little bit here. I think her first orientation was at a hospital in Colorado in the CT ICU, correct?
Close, Des Moines, but that's the correct unit.
Right, good.
So I graduated out of Iowa. So there's two types of orientations that I think as new grads were offered, and the first one is a residency program, which what I experienced with that was it's about 4 to 8 weeks long, depending on what unit you're in, and the majority of that time is spent either in the classroom or shadowing and actually being a protege with a preceptor still, even after you're licensed. And that's that can be 4 to 8 weeks. Sometimes I've seen them, if you really need help or you're in an ED as a new grad or something like that, they can be as long as 12 weeks. So that's as long as your assignment is a lot of the orientations that I've seen. But I've also seen ones where you're just orienting and you're not in a new grad residency program, where maybe those are like 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes they can go 6. That's kind of more what I had. But you're still allowed to follow and shadow if you need to. But for the majority, you're on your own. You're just taking either a lighter patient load or less critical patients. But you spend a few shifts, going over the MAR and going over the electronic systems and charting. You spend a few days shadowing. You spend a few days learning about the unit. And so it's just funny to hear even the 1 to 3 day orientation, because I've never seen that before, and I've definitely not experienced it. But ours, I guess the biggest difference is just length, and you aren't there technically by yourself. You always have an extra pair of hands and someone to follow or to help you. So I think that's a little bit different.
Well, that's awesome information, Kelly. Well, I think those are all the topics that we're going to cover today. I think the key takeaways today are we talked about orientation, and it was really refreshing to hear Kelly's viewpoint on orientation, where a new nurse's orientation is 8 to 12 weeks, to where your first orientation as a travel nurse might be 2 or 3 days, and then Kay, we have a veteran, an absolutely savvy veteran who got into her first shift and was just tossed into the fire. And I think it hits to a good point on human nature, in that we all get better and better at things as life goes on. And then, we want to inspire everybody on here to get better at reading your contract. Angelina talked about communicating the key points of the contract, knowing your guaranteed hours. Kay did some really good analysis on wages and all of those things that go into negotiating and understanding what you're going to get paid. So I think it's really awesome to hear these viewpoints from these 3 great people on different levels, because it shows a wide audience all about travel nursing. So I wanted to thank everybody. Thank you, Angelina. I don't know if you have any closing statements or comments before we go, and then we'll move right on to Kay.
Yeah, just thank you for having me. And I hope that all of this information was beneficial, and that everyone will take it and do the research and really prepare yourself before you get into your travel nursing career.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and keep educating those travelers, Angelina. Thank you.
Thank you.
My biggest thing for beginner travel nurses, and for any travel nurse really, is that as long as you make patient care number one, then you have a lot easier time. Just ask yourself. I mean, is that whenever you're deciding on things and your patient care, what's gonna be best for that patient? Because that's really all that it's about, because you're there to take care of your people, and put your patients first, and that'll save you a lot in the long run. Because out on an assignment, you really don't have a support system like you would at a staff job. So as a traveler, you know, a lot of times you do feel by yourself, but I have found that if you put patients first, then travel nursing is a lot easier.
Thank you so much for that last little tidbit. I think that's actually the greatest takeaway of today is patients are always first. And that's something that we talk about here at USSI all the time is that, you know, remember, we're dealing with nurses here. We're dealing with people who put themselves before everyone else. And that's why we treat our nurses so well, because they take care of patients all day and they put themselves in front of patients. And so I think that's the best takeaway from our celebrity is patients first. And thank you all. And we look forward to talking to you again probably in the next couple weeks on the next Travel Nursing Roundtable coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.